And as the city sits in the ferocity of discordance, I will dwell alone in the fields, melting with provenance, tributaries, heredity. The night is no comfiture, and the dalliance of treacherous shade stained in the moan of erasure. And gone is the drifting splendor, the veritas of naked sign, sacrifice magnified in inconsolable deflection. Pass me in the hallways of your grid, in the pandemonium of my impress knit in the livery of dwelling. Pass me, wretched, through the wounds of humiliation, curtsying in the crush of knotted breakage brackets. Weep me in the pylon of your policing, for these are the amendments, the figura of chasms exiled in disinformation. This is the lotted, my garden, corseted in collusion, herded platforms, domes of wilted bargaining, the picked ramparts of broken defense. And this is the delegitimized vows, trauma, blockages, and the grief-hardened hunger. The theurgy of delight is a drowning down. The urgency of the light is a drowning dawn. The resurgence of the light is adoring drawn. A drowning down, a drowning dawn. The urgence, a drowning, a dawning, a knotted dawn. The delight of the light, resurgent, a light in the urgent emergence to light in the days of our hunger. And in the ache of asylum, I have bent my bow, framed in the anchor of candy dalliance, screaming in strung shadows, revenants where limbing futures festooned in sunshift lie with me in the illicit quiver of knotted conscience, languish through whispered harbors, pressed exile among evenings, inheritance, the providence of slipped seams, slant sucking twilight of lattice scatter, lie with me in our ash-starred silence, constellated in the riveted drifts, and suck the sting of sun-clung lettered skin as I open my mouth wide against you, ink-gnashed in the twinned ignition of scar-studded scripts. And behold, the stretched vestige of sprayed hunger, whose singeing fingers devour in the petulance of choked zones, slain in the scored synchrony of slung slaughter, summoning as though it were a feast day, sprawled in the dandle of the rippled signs of chorused dawn. Sheltered in netted inlets of ripped decemia, fleshy secateurs, wisteria, the taste of broken bands. Hail the billow of campy siege, the trance of gilded travail, and make me dwell in the darkened wreckage of feverish dread, in the censored resonance of pliant heaves, the plated shudder of my parade. Burn me in the binding bias and torqued harrow, in the swindled aperture of fibrous light, and I am giddy with shaded want in the quiescence of luded clues, naked with his yoke in my mouth, Let him sit sultry, for he has laid upon me. Let him put his mouth into the dust, offer his shackles to the smitten. Let him be filled with peaches. The load is my potion to those who wait. Come to me in the unduance of unassailable labor, in the screaming revenants. Covet me with re-sculpted signs of foaming rapture. Make me come in the refuse among the precipice, in the amnesty of affliction, wrapped in the shadowed torrent of hushed slaughter. Peoples, eye streams in the tell of the luring, and say, lick down in the frame of hushed lobbies, suck solace in the eros of my city, and find me in the engine of our demise. Cast your mask upon me, water my flowing head, and cut me in the dripping petulance of curled indices in the call of farce. You have seen the ringing dalliance, seen the silty ode of fitful defiance ground in the ferocity of mourning as you police me in the milk of daybreak. And his care curls in her swirled whirl, spurred lure, stirred spur of porous war, whose flayed fray for his flurried furry fiery folly flares in the florid lore of soaring horror in the ripped rot raw lot. And in the raging contagion of the yoked hurrah, we are riddled in thick drift and drunk with iniquity, asking whose balletic thirst is clasped in the synonymy of our yea-say, purer than sinew and wet with dusk, ruddier than coral, sapphire milking crimson syrup, sifted rifts of split surfeids, whose skin, a buttered vortex of fruited folds, fluted affinities of ripened whim, crowned in syllabic aberrance as tongue talked suck cleaves, whose contours of thirsty flourish lather in the inhabitants of herded words, and who frames the humming graphs of grinding ligatures, whose prophecy pressed in the witness of blind stagger, and through twisty cirques censures garmented in letters, whose calling out in the fingered folly of lassoed swoon say through frisson flare slip slaps mounting wrapped in the stopwatch sap scored arias of purring rigor. And whose rushed ramparts mount in cradled bouquet, of whose drenched thresholds of pursed favor flutter, in whose fluted impasse compassed, in whose haunted walls, whose licked chambers kissed in the porosity of luxuriant exposure, anchored in slung sun suck spurs, suckers, prurience in the province of curled lure, whose chorused encore chords as quilled squall coils in scarred culled cues culling as the band plays on. Our letters have been turned over to strangers, our light to aliens. We have become orphans, our murmurs widows. Our nostalgia we have drunk for payment, our words come by purchase. And in the racked circuits of asylum, we are arrested in the rot of the wilderness. Our skin is parched, scarred in the heat of our hunger. They have outraged whimsy in the cities. Hegemony was hanged by its hands, curtained with contingency hours. Carry the counting mouths, gagged under the policing. The prow of our heart has ceased. Our dancing has turned to mourning. Our skin has fallen. Gone is the luster that lies longing through the shuttered gates of sun-washed words, girded skin-side, through the sprig of ripe albeit. Let the streets remember the rhythms and stairways, remember the costume raucous retching in the unbearable clearing. Remember, let the rooms remember the stages and facades, let the mirrors remember the bus stations and bastions, shadows and fables, let the grammar of unfolding of rotted speech, cracked caskets, cliffs, grifts, shafts, grafts, the torpor and swindles. Let the skies remember and carry the burden of our memory. In the picketed moor of Loomspool, lapstab, porous bird purr past in the epoch ellipse. I will worship language in the night, lay violent hands on your marked cities. I will clutch at lies, grow bestial in my dreams, slick with ripped script, licking the funicular of jiggling particulars, will allow myself to be slaughtered like a beast. And will worship as the would you, awed in the wondered wed of the wonder widening worship. Through prurient piers, pierced longing burst bands, bridled signals worship. In the contiguous torment of huddled borders screaming against your skin, fortress by weeping thresholds precipice. So pass through me in the folded fancy of cracked madness, contoured in shivering silhouettes, wet, a ret pirouette of softened kisses, brackets, pastures, pulsing sleepless through scarred triggers. Pass through me, fleeced in the numb sensors of fissured swarms, through tongue torrents, tombs, settling ash through the sift of symptom stalls whose wills, wails whirl in the weave of social flesh, through tattered shadows, margins, dizzying wounds, howl, spurs, spores, silence, cinders, blood as the walls bear down, weeping. Through the hour of prismatic distortions, the hour of unease, the hour of secret chambers, errant temerity, shudders, silences, barricades nursed in darkness. The hour of resplendent hunger, scandals, fumes, revulsion, the hour stretched in the horror of unnameable lament, of swollen words wind-bent and drunken, the hour of our cunning, of cloistered torment, shivering in the hour of re-scented prisons mouthed in the fastened flaps of flesh, breath, sirens, soulless prayer, labyrinths, shadows, ire, the hour of weighted garments, gusseted curtains, chasms, silence, screams, wailing in the intimacy of its alchemy. In the black and unyielding light, a light in our own shivering dream, through the light of fat language, the light of stretched testing, widening fear, the light of untidy probes which smell like gags, thievery, acrobats, dancing bears, pass through me, through the light of the distance, screaming in the nostalgia of the present.